Guys, the staunch pro-Israel, pro-Likud organization, the Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt, went out publicly stating that even anti-Zionist Jews can be anti-Semitic. It's been garnering a lot of attention online. Take a listen to this and let's talk about it.
I'm pretty out there saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it is. I also think the sky is blue. I also think that the world is not flat. I mean, anti-Zionism is simply the latest way that anti-Jewish hate is normalized and legitimized with a pseudo-scientific or pseudo-political veneer. But if you look at the tropes and if you listen to the words and you see them for who they are, like the rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. By the way, even if they come from our Jewish community, we need to recognize that as well.
Even if they come from our Jewish community, apparently not supporting the state of Israel, not supporting the determination of Jewish people to build a homeland on Palestinians' land, taking their homes, stealing them, ethnically cleansing them, that is anti-Semitic. And this correlation and this connection between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism that pro-Israel neocons, because he is a neocon pushing for war, this correlation, this connection that they're trying to build is only backfiring on them because you have a lot of people that are against Zionists, against Zionism, that are anti-Zionists, and that are not anti-Semitic. Why does this man so badly want to build more of a coalition of people that dislike him? Why does he want to allow this to backfire and hurt his community more? It's very odd to me. It's very odd to me. If you think that there's a growing rise in anti-Semitism, yet you're pulling more people in as anti-Semitic, you're only enticing them to dislike you more. You're only enticing more backfire on your own community. Since when does a political ideology have to be protected by this guise of anti-Semitism? Since when is that a thing? I also truly wonder whether or not he fully believes it and he's just delusional, or he knows that what he's saying is BS, but he's saying it anyway as a scapegoat to hide genuine criticism of Israel and Israel's overreach in the US government. I think it's a little bit mix of both. I think he's actually delusional, and then he is also trying to cover for Israel and Israel's policies by not allowing genuine criticism of that project in the Middle East to be had. Now, there's a lot more to this conversation. There's about a minute and a half more from the beginning that I want to play, so you guys can take a listen to this.
We have people on the far left justifying like a biblical catastrophe or cataclysm like October the 7th, literally justifying it, literally describing some of the perpetrators who were caught and captured as hostages, which is so profane, I hesitate to even say it out loud. It's just so disgraceful and amoral. But the reality is there are segments of the far left which have been consumed by this anti-Zionist ideology. And we've talked on your show before, and I'm pretty out there saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it is.
And that's where we'll just stop. That's the other half that I wanted to share with you guys. So if that's the case, then there should be no problem stating that IDF soldiers that were taken on October 7th are combatants as well. Correct? Are they not? They are combatants. That's their legitimate role. I think that there is this double standard, also ignoring the fact that a lot of Palestinians that are in Israeli prison coming from the occupied West Bank, the Israeli occupied West Bank, are also young teenagers, and they've been held in Israeli detention with no definitive end date for simply throwing stones on tanks in their own land. A foreign enemy's tank in your land that you throw a stone at means now you're held in prison indefinitely, and you're also considered an extremist. That's what Israel views. If it happened to Americans and the Russians or the Chinese or anybody else came into America, they occupied a portion of America, and the American citizens living there, if they threw stones or tried to get those tanks out using whatever means necessary, they would be called patriots because they're not allowing a foreign invader to come in. Yet when a Palestinian does it in the Israeli occupied West Bank or Gaza, and they're stopping a foreign invader from coming in, taking their land, then having radical settlers come in and colonize and build settlements on their land, they're the extremists, they're the terrorists. There seems to be a double standard there. Okay, what is they're calling 3-year-olds extremists. Just a couple days ago, there was the IDF X account made a post stating that they eliminated terrorists, quote unquote, that were on the yellow line. And when you ended up looking up who those individuals were, they were 2 children under the age of 10. And then Beitar, the ultra right wing extremist pro-Israel organization, commented and said, yes, those 3-year-olds are terrorists. So this is kind of what that crowd genuinely thinks, and they have no problem saying it. Now, I also want to bring up the Anti-Defamation League because there's a lot going on with that organization that most people also just don't know. The Anti-Defamation League is an extension of the Israeli Mossad and cooperates with Israeli Mossad here in the United States. There's a lot of crosstalk back and forth. And this isn't just coming from my statements. This is coming from previous FBI investigations that were held on the Anti-Defamation League. This is these are documents retrieved from Freedom of Information Act requests that were then published on the israellobby.org. Despite its name, it's a organization, or it's a website that helps expose the Israel lobby's atrocities, the Israel lobby's actions, using just genuine documents that were retrieved from the government. So raids conducted under search warrants of the ADL's San Francisco and Los Angeles offices in 1993 turned not only improperly obtained by police reports, the ADL's possession of classified FBI files prompted an espionage investigation into how the ADL obtained and funneled such information to Israeli officials who frequently visited and tasked the organization's, quote, fact finders. Okay, that's what's going on here. So now we're learning that back in 1993, somehow the ADL offices, Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of that organization, maybe not at that time, but it's his organization now, obtained documents showing that they had police information, police reports that were confidential, and they somehow obtained it. Not only did they obtain it, but now they're giving it to a foreign government official. This was back in 1993. This is just one of the cases that I'm showing you. I'm going to pull up one of the documents here. A 1993 memo to the FBI director revealed, quote, unidentified individuals at the Anti-Defamation League in possession of Bureau classified information from the FBI, along with confidential police reports and files belonging to the San Francisco Police Department after the ADL's Los Angeles and San Francisco offices were searched under warrant. An FBI special agent contacts a former ADL employee to find out how the ADL came into receipt of an FBI document. She recalls it came from, quote, an official friend and should be, quote, treated confidential. So here's the document right here. Let me go ahead and zoom in and readjust the screen so you guys can see this better. And this is the document that was, again, retrieved from a Freedom of Information Act request from the ADL. And it's important to show you guys this because it gives you insight into how the ADL is operating. And then also how this was just back in 1993. Okay, so this was what, 32 years ago. If you do think that the ADL does not operate in a similar fashion, if not even doing even more nowadays from documents that were not obtained yet from the Freedom of Information Act requests, communications between SS blank, lots of redactions here. A former ADL employee who may have knowledge of how the ADL came into receipt of the FBI document was referenced on March of 1993. It goes on, in possession of at least one FBI document that contains classified information. So how did an organization like this obtain this sort of information? And then why is it also disseminating that information to Israeli officials? Previous versions of this document were disseminated as attachments to a secret airtel sent under Chicago file blank. And it goes on and it talks about during the course of the blank investigation, copies turned up during a search of the ADL offices that I previously mentioned. As a result of the search, it led to an FBI NY to contact the ADL in New York City to determine if any bureau documents were held at that location. And it goes on and on and on. So there was this entire investigation that was held because of the Israeli lobby somehow obtaining this sort of information and then seemingly sending it over to officials overseas. Now, separate from this information, separate from these documents, what's also really shocking is the fact that the ADL also, during South Africa apartheid, back in the early 1990s, the ADL hired a private investigator to spy on Arab Americans and African American organizations in the United States that were against apartheid South Africa. And they were very closely aligned with the apartheid South Africa government because the ADL, which is working with the Mossad, knew that if apartheid South Africa were to fall, Israel was worried that that movement would then overflow into Israel and the occupied West Bank. What does that tell you about how Israel views themselves? Get it? If they don't believe they're apartheid, they're running an apartheid, which is exactly what's going on in the occupied West Bank, then why would they be concerned about the idea of South Africa apartheid falling apart? Now, on top of that, the ADL or the in the occupied West Bank, what you'll notice is that whenever Israeli propagandists on X on social media mention that there's no apartheid in Israel, they'll go ahead and start taking photos of Tel Aviv's where you'll see Palestinians walking around, Palestinians with Israeli citizenship from 1948, walking around with hijabs, walking around publicly, walking by Jewish people. And they act like they are ignorant to the fact that when people mention that Israel is upholding an apartheid, when I mention that, I'm clearly not referring to Israel proper, which includes Tel Aviv and Haifa and the like. I'm referring to the actual apartheid that's happening in the Israeli occupied West Bank, where there are settlements and Palestinian villages, Jewish main roads, Palestinian back roads, Jews with weapons, Palestinians without. That's the sort of apartheid that I'm referring to. And they refuse to overlook that and instead assume that when people are saying apartheid, or lie that when people are saying apartheid, they think it means their own, that it means Israel proper. Now, regardless, let me go ahead and pull up these documents because the ADL, here we are. This is some pretty shocking stuff as well. The ADL here was working and investigated for espionage again because of the fact that, let's see here, there we go. This is the one that I was looking for, actually. Lawsuits against the ADL over privacy rights violations. The investigation of the San Francisco police officers' possessions computerized files on Arab American activists led to criminal investigators straight to the Anti-Defamation League in 1993. So again, that same year. And they discovered that this individual, Roy Bullock, was an investigator that was hired by the ADL to help South Africa's apartheid government and to get intel on organizations here that were anti-apartheid. Again, because the ADL was working very closely with apartheid South Africa. And here's a lot of information regarding individuals that they were spying on. And eventually the FBI was able to uncover this information and an investigation was had on this as well. So this is kind of the situation that we're in now. Jonathan Greenblatt, of course, acts like he's operating an organization that's just focused on, quote, combating anti-Semitism. But now, when you have an organization that states they're combating anti-Semitism, but they view anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, as you've seen back in 1993 when they were investigating anti-apartheid activists or when they were obtaining confidential police reports and sending that information, to Israeli officials. If they were willing to do that back in 1993 because of the fact that they believe anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, then that means that anti-Zionism going on today or individuals working today to stop the settlement expansion in the West Bank, to them that would be considered anti-Semitic because of the fact that individuals stopping settlement expansion are withholding Jewish people's rights to Judea and Samaria. That's what their ideology believes. If that's the case, then are they also spying now on organizations in the United States that are working on those initiatives? Are they spying on American politicians that are working on such initiatives, or American politicians that are more friendly to the Palestinians? Or are they spying on American politicians that are very pro-Israel, but they just want to make sure they're consistently in line? Okay, they already put a Mamdani monitor together to monitor Zohran Mamdani's actions in case he pushes for policies such as BDS policies, boycotts, divestment, and sanctions on the state of Israel. It's been a movement that was going on since 2014, 2015, to make sure that his actions are in line. Okay, how far does that sort of investigation go? Who are they hiring behind the scenes? What are they doing behind the scenes? And yet this guy goes on publicly and he's getting TV time where he gets to push his propaganda. Nobody says anything. He gets put on CBS This Morning. He gets put on one evening news show after another, and he's given all of this airtime, but he's spewing the most, I guess, anti-Palestinian sort of rhetoric. He's trying to justify Israel's onslaught in Gaza, just like Randy Fine is doing. But Randy Fine, of course, is saying even more atrocious things, and they're still getting this infinite airtime. That's kind of the state of America today. So anyways, guys, I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, would appreciate the support. If you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe as well below, helps me reach more people. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.